Hi there, I am Jason Evans, a local Atlanta film critic, a CNN journalist, as well as the co-chair of the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival's Film Evaluation Committee. And if you enjoyed the film you just saw, Plan A, half as much as I did, you're in for a real treat right now. Joining us for a conversation about it are the writer-directors of Plan A, brothers Yoav and Doron Paz. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here at the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival.
Hi, thanks for having us. Thank you very much.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, guys, by the way, we are huge fans of your films. I saw Jerusalem, I saw The Golem. They were both featured in the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. There are a million different questions I want to ask you, but the first thing that came to mind when I saw that you all were attached to this film, your previous films were, but those two films were horror stories. They were monster stories. Right. This is a completely different direction. Talk about the decision, to go into a new genre, historical, fiction, nonfiction kind of.
Actually, we are working on this film on Plan A almost a decade now. We started writing the script a long time ago, and it was a very long process, writing the script, raising the funds, editing the film. Everything was taking a long time. So actually making these horror films, Jerusalem and The Golem, was actually in the meantime for just to entertain ourselves, because we are big horror fans. I don't know if horror is the right word, but like we are attracted to more to the dark side of humanity, and we always want to explore this kind of aspects. So we did these two horror films in a way just to entertain ourselves till Plan A would finally be made.
Yeah, and I just want to add also to my brother's words that as we said, although we came from genre and horror movies, I think Plan A is the darkest and most scary and more deep psychologically is the most darkest materials we ever did, more than the others for us. So this is the real horror.
So let's talk about Plan A, and you're right. I mean, it is almost a horror film. How much of it, Doron, I'll ask you, how much of it was true and how much of it is poetic license? I know you all did a lot of research, but you obviously you have to tell a story at the same time, right?
Exactly. It's always a thin line because we're not documentarists, we're storytellers, we're movie makers. But of course, it's based on a true story. It's not inspired by a true story or something like that. This event really happened. The only thing we kept to ourselves, like creative freedom for ourselves, is not to deal with the specific names, except Abba Kovner, the leader, who is the famous, very famous guy here in Israel and around the world, and he's well known. But all the other characters were inspired by the real characters we met, the real Avengers, the original Avengers we met along the way during our research, and we built characters inspired by them. But other than that, the plan was the real, the Jewish Brigade and their operations is real, and everything is real. You always want to stretch the dramatic tension and to emphasize more the stuff that you want to tell. We can talk about maybe later on when we dive into the story, but yeah, it's all true, of course. This is really blew our mind that this story really happened, and almost nobody knows about this story, and we didn't know about this story in Israel. And growing up in Israel, you think you know all the Holocaust stories from a very early age, but this one, not a lot of people know about, and maybe this is the time to tell this story.
Yoav, let me ask you, because I want to get more into that research and the such. You all worked with a historian at Yad Vashem, didn't you? Or I understand there's someone there who's writing a book or has written a book on this.
Right. Well, when we decided to dive into this subject and being so delicate and all, so the first thing we did is collaborate with Professor Dina Porat, the chief historian of Yad Vashem, and she actually published a book about this subject just in the last year. But she's with us, working with us on this project for almost, like I said, from the very early stages. And also, so that was very helpful for us when we wrote the script. And also we met some of the real Avengers. That's also the first thing we did. And unfortunately, most of them passed away in the recent years. but we were lucky to interview some of them from the Jewish Brigade and also from Abba Kovner's group. And this was, I think, the most helpful thing for us when we approached this project. Just having long conversation with them, talking about asking them the questions that we were interested in, not only the historian and facts, because this we can read in the books, but more about the way they felt, their mood.
Yeah, as my brother said, we while interviewing the original Avengers, what interested us mostly is the psychology behind the revenge. Like as filmmakers, that's what interests us. Of course, there's the plot and what happened and the historical events, but what we wanted to tell in this story, in this movie, is what a person feels when he's dealing with such a deep and intensive revenge, and what's going on inside of him, what's the human element of it. And I think that's what we try to dive into the conversations with the original Avengers. And it was mind-blowing to talk to them and to hear like what it's really like to be a hot-blooded young man or woman, 22, 23 years old, who lost everyone and everything in the world. All of their family died and got murdered by the Nazis in the Holocaust. And what would you do? That's the question we're trying to throw to the audience. So they always keep telling us, don't try to judge us by today's standards. It's very easy to judge this situation today when there's Israel and everyone is safe and secure, but try to think about it in 1945 when you're just burning with rage, and what are you going to do about it? That was a fascinating conversations with them.
You bring up something I really wanted to ask you about. I mean, the film obviously does a great job of setting up why this plot to kill so many Germans would have been bad for Israel and could have potentially endangered the creation of the state of Israel. That's discussed. Right. That's discussed in the film. But at the same time, there's a sense that revenge is justified. How do you want people to come away from this in terms of thinking about revenge?
It's very hard to take a stand. It's very hard to say, I wouldn't do it. This is wrong. This is right. It's very complicated to answer this question. Very difficult to answer it. What we can say is that in very early stages, David Ben-Gurion and the first prime minister of Israel and all the leadership here in Israel, they decided that you cannot establish a country and build a new country based on these values of revenge and negative values like destruction and killing back. So they hide this, they erase these stories from our ethos. That's the reason we don't know these stories. Actually, we didn't. Me and Yoav and all the third generation kids that grew up in Israel here, we didn't know about the revenge stories. And there were revenge stories. Plan A is the biggest one, but there was so many. Not so many. There are many. But we didn't know about it because they didn't want us to know about it. And I think that's the most interesting question, aside from about the revenge itself, is why didn't we talk about this subject till now? And there is a very specific reason for that. And yeah, and again, it's a complicated question. I don't know what I would do. I don't know. If I was 22, 23 years old and lost everything, maybe I would do the same. Maybe not. I don't know. It's very, people took a lot of decisions in different paths, and some of the original most of the original Avengers, while talking to them, they said that for them the best revenge, eventually nowadays when they look back, the best revenge is building a country, raising a family, having sons and daughters who are doctors and pilots and educators and scholars. Filmmakers. Yeah, maybe filmmakers no, but all the rest, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, so this is the constructive revenge. This is like we say in the movie, like the famous Jewish sentence, live well, it's the best revenge there is. It's a very Jewish very Yiddish Jewish sentence, which we really relate to.
So we've been talking about revenge. The film is called Plan A, but there was also a Plan B, wasn't there, involving poisoning German POWs.
Right.
Did you all do any research? Did you look into that at all?
Yeah, in the first versions of the script, we had also Plan B in the script. But then, because there's so many stories that, like, everywhere you turn, when we did the research, everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, there's another story just waiting there for you to tell. And we wanted to tell so many of these stories, but after a while we understood, okay, we need to concentrate on one thing. And we could plan A, also making a feature film, you're limited. You have like 2 hours, max, to tell us a very complicated story. You need to do a lot of compromises, a lot of shortcuts. So we unfortunately we needed to put Plan B aside, but it's a fascinating story that stands by itself. After Plan A failed, some of the Avengers went on another revenge operation, which is to poison the bread supply for a war for SS soldiers and war criminals that were held in a captivity, and they were hiding in the basement, in the bakery. And it was a very amazing and outstanding operation. And some historian and actually the Avengers themselves say that they did succeed to kill few hundreds Nazi soldiers. Some historians say that they only had a food poisoning. So it's complicated. But again, the idea is much bigger than the result itself.
Sure. No, it's a fascinating topic, and anyone coming out of your film is going to want to think about it themselves. On a personal note, I went to Germany back in the 1990s. I was on a journalist exchange program, and I couldn't help it. As I would walk down the streets and I would see elderly Germans, I would wonder what were they doing during the Holocaust, during the massacre of my people. I couldn't help but think that way. Does this film reflect on your feelings about the Holocaust in Germany at all? How much personal anger maybe did you all bring to this?
First of all, your question is, I think it's every Israeli asks these questions while growing. It's so natural for us to think about the older people there when you meet them.
Yeah.
So you're totally right. And I think for us, it was an amazing experience to work with the German crew and a German production. Most of it was shot in Germany, and the money was from Germany, and the crew and the cast. And we had a lot of conversation with them, and we had some really emotional stories from behind the scenes that you talk to an actor or someone or a cast member or a crew member, and he tells us that he's so blessed. He feels so blessed to work on this movie, because his grandfather was this and that and this and that, and wow. Horrible stuff, by the way, horrible stuff. Like one of the crew members in our movie, never mind the names, of course, his grandfather was not just an SS soldier, one of the biggest generals in the SS something squad, I don't remember, who did
wow.
horrible stuff. And with tears in his eyes, he tells us, "Thank you for letting me work in this movie. For me, it's a closure. For me, it's a very emotional," and you can see him really, like, for me, it was so moving and so emotional. And he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. And he tried and he came to the kibbutz in his 20s, and he tried to make it, like, to do whatever he can to make himself feel better for his grandfather. So there was a lot of interesting moments there in this production with the Germans.
Right.
I mean, that's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And speaking of the cast and crew, you've got a wonderful cast in this film, especially the lead, August Diehl. I love his scene in the basement bar in Inglourious Bastards is one of the great scenes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, right. 3 or 3, right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely legendary. He is someone who's worked, of course, with Quentin Tarantino. He's been in films with Terrence Malick, Robert Zemeckis. I mean, some of the great directors of all time. What was it like getting him for this movie? Yoav, talk about, that's a real special actor.
Well, when our producers told us that one day we got a phone call from our producers that said, listen, August Diehl keeps say no to scripts that are being offered to him, but he read your script, he just dying to do this, he loved the script, he wants to meet you guys. And in the beginning we had some second thoughts about it because we always imagined some actor who is Jewish and August is not. But we say, okay, let's meet him. And we met him, and he was so, he knew so much about this subject. He read so much about it. He was so into it. So like after a while, we told each other, okay, so what does it mean to be Jewish? Do you need to look in a certain way? Does it, again, what does it mean? Like, this is the entire thing. What is being Jewish? And then we said, okay, we need the best actor we can get to this role, to this such a challenging role. And we decided to go with August, and he was such an amazing actor. We were so lucky to have him. He had his own methods, August, what's so amazing working with him, that he cannot fake it. And I can tell you about Michael Aloni, when in their fighting scene till the end of the film, he was so afraid because everything that August is doing is for real. He's like exploding on the screen. And of course, when he needed to slam him on the wall, he did it all the way. And this is how he is. And also when he had these emotional scenes, he's exploding on one. Usually Israeli actors or other actors that we're working with, they need their time to get themselves warm. August is just boom on the first take. So it was a really interesting experience working with him, and we are so lucky to have him.
Yeah.
So, did you guys ask him at all? Hey, what would Tarantino do? What would Terrence Malick do here?
No, actually, but it was like a cultural differences between the Israeli group. We were like 3 or 4 Israelis and like 100 German crew members. And of course, Israelis, I don't know if you know this, but Israelis are quite noisy, and we talk loud and with our hands. And we were shocked to see the crew and everyone, the cast, and everybody's so quiet in Germany, and they work and they're serious, and they're not playing with their iPhones, and they're all into the work during the shooting day. And me and Yoav were telling each other every day, like, wow, this is the most quiet set we ever worked on. And we were so pleased. And then August Diehl comes to us like a few days later, and he tells us, listen, guys, this is the noisiest set I ever worked in. For the Germans, it was a noisy set because we were like, blah, 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 talking in Hebrew and making a lot of noise. But it was amazing. There was some cultural differences there, but it was great.
That is so funny. Hey, I want to shift for a moment to the craft, the art of what you guys do. First of all, I want you to know I'm the father of 2 sons who could not be more different. I have to ask what it's like to work in tandem with your brother. Who has final say? Who gets to say,
Mom.
yes, we do this, or no, we do that? Doron, I'll let you go first.
First of all, we grew up to this profession. Our father is a filmmaker. Jonathan Paz is doing a lot of documentaries and feature films about the kibbutz world. And our grandfather was a theater director in the kibbutz also. So we didn't have a lot of choice. Yoav always wanted to be a filmmaker from a very early age. So he knew what he wanted to do. I was in music more. And after the army service, Yoav in his army service was an editor and a filmmaker in the army unit, lucky guy. I wasn't so lucky, and I went to tanks, to the armor, and but he pulled me in. Instead of going to wait or to do waitress work or flipping burgers in some McDonald's. He took me into and taught me how to edit videos and stuff. So we started out as video editors, and we grew up to it together. And we have the same cultural references. We know we are correlated. We have the same influences. We grew up in the same house, watching the same movies. If it's Fellini or Die Hard, This is the influence is very, very from a lot of places. So yeah, it works good for us for now. And you don't have a lot of time to argue on set. When you're on set, you need to do it really fast. You have no time for discussion. The trouble starts in the editing room.
In the editing room.
Yeah.
In the editing room, the shouting starts in the editing room. You can ask the editors that were walking in the rooms next to us. Because in the editing room, like, you have all the time in the world, and then you can try this and you can try that, and then everything starts. But again, like, the shooting part is maybe the shortest part of the entire process of making a film. Most of your energies are going into just making it happen and just pushing this project on. So being two is making things a bit easier.
Yoav, let me ask you, is there one of you that's more of the writer and one's more the director, or is it complete collaboration?
No, complete, like, we don't have any rules. We just, go on with the flow. We wrote the script together, we directed it together. On set, sometimes someone was more dominant and the other, went back more to the monitor, more to maybe to the technical crew. And then, like, the next thing it changed, but it's never planned with us. Like, it's just like how it goes. We only have one rule, is that only one of us is talking to the actors at a scene, not to confuse them. But other than that, everything is very intuitive.
Doron, did you want to add something?
The delicate part is working with the actors, and so this is a delicate part, and the other one steps back to the technical crew, and it works really good for us. It's easier.
I wanted to ask you guys, I think every time I talk to directors, people who've been on film sets, they have crazy stories about, oh, you wouldn't believe this thing that happened or that thing that happened. It's your turn now. Give me a good story from the set from making this film.
I can tell you about the differences from Israeli crew and the German crew, is that because we are always used to work here with under budget, under time, always like fighting, everything crazy. A set here in Israel is really crazy. And in Europe, everything is in order, especially in Germany. And for us, it was really weird, sometimes funny. You can say funny to see it. Like, I can give you one example, is that when we shot in the river scene, and the water were maybe this high, my 5-year-old daughter can cross this river, but because it's a German crew, so they brought 4 scuba divers with full gear and air supply and everything, and they were just, one actor was Harvey playing in the water, and like 4 scuba divers were like all around him. So these kind of things made us it was very funny for us. But other than that, we had a lot of fun, and it was a great experience.
Well, and obviously you're talking about budgets. I think I read that Jerusalem that you all made for $160,000, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Actually, our first 3 feature films were completely independent. We did Fobidilia, which was about the guy who's agoraphobic and cannot leave his apartment. It was a very small indie production that we were lucky to get into TIFF, Toronto Film Festival, and Berlinale, and did many festivals with it. But it was a very, very small drama. And then we did Jerusalem out of our own pocket. And later on, the Golem, also from our own private money, very small sum of money. So after doing 3 independent films, finally on Plan A, we could work with a proper budget, and yeah.
You probably never want to go back.
I'm not sure, I've got to say. Making an indie film has so many advantages, especially regarding politics. You can do whatever you want. Things move, decisions are much more easier. Everything moves faster, and you can decide where to put the money on, sometimes then easier. I recommend to everyone who has a good idea just to go and shoot it. That's just
the way to get it made.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, guys, this is your 3rd film to be in the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. We've loved the previous 2. I have to ask what's coming next. I heard a rumor about what you guys are working on next. What can you confirm for me?
Oh, wow. There are several rumors I hear. But actually, we're working on a TV show right now. We have something and other feature films in the can, of course, in the pipeline. But we're really deep into writing a TV show right now. We can't tell a lot about it, but it's going to be a genre drama, but a thriller, something like that. Very Israeli, but very international too. And yeah, we're deep in the writing right now, and let's hope to screen it in the festival again in the near future.
Now, wait, I heard that Jerusalem 2 is going to happen.
Not so sure. Not so sure.
Not so sure. But let's keep it like that. It's it's there. It's in the IMDb page, but we're still working on it.
I love it. Guys, this was a great conversation. I had so much fun talking to you. I had so much fun watching this movie, just like both of your other films. It has been a great pleasure to have you, Yoav and Doron Paz. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We are big fans. Whatever you do next, I want to see. I want to be a part of it.
It's really heartwarming to hear that. And spread the rumors. If you like the film, please tell your friends. Because the COVID and everything made things much harder. So please, spread the rumor if you like the film.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so thanks to both of you. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you out there, people who are watching, for being fans and supporters of the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. Again, I'm Jason Evans. Hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.